Hello, jeweler, and welcome to this module on machine over man. Yes, this sounds very world takeover-y, and it is, not really. But don't worry, by the end you'll come to understand how we'll be able to multiply our efforts in order to create some incredible results that we wouldn't otherwise be able to. First, I'll talk about the major dilemma that most businesses face on the outset without even knowing that it exists. Then, once we understand the need to overcome that dilemma, we'll talk about a truly magical principle that will allow us to change the way we do business forever. And finally, we'll briefly explore the principle of magnitude marketing. I want to tell you a story. Now, I read a lot. Each week I normally get through 2 to 3 books. So I've heard probably 10 different versions of this same story, but they all have the exact same lesson, which I'll be teaching you shortly. When I first heard this story, it was like being given words to express something deep within me that I didn't know how to say. I began to see the entire world differently. And now, as I work with different jewelers and businesses, I can tell a big difference between those who have taken this story to heart and those who have yet to see the benefits that this change can bring in their lives. And it's the principles behind this story that guide every decision that I make moving forward. So, here we go. Once upon a time, there was this quaint little village. It was a great place to live except for one problem. The village had no water unless it rained. To solve this problem once and for all, the village elders asked contractors to submit bids to deliver water to the village on a daily basis. 2 people volunteered to take on the task, and the elders awarded the contract to both of them. They felt that a little competition would keep the prices low and ensure a backup supply of water. The first person who won the contract, Ed, immediately ran out, bought 2 galvanized steel buckets, and began running back and forth to the lake, which was about a mile away. He immediately began making money as he labored morning until dusk, hauling water from the lake with his 2 buckets. He would empty them into a large concrete holding tank that the village had built. Each morning he had to get up before the rest of the village woke so that he could make sure that there was enough water for the people. It was hard work, but he was happy to be making money for having one of the 2 exclusive contracts for this business. The second winner was Bill, and Bill disappeared for a while. He wasn't seen for months, which made Ed very happy, since he had no competition. Instead of buying 2 buckets to compete with Ed, Bill wrote a business plan, created a corporation, found 4 investors, employed a president to do the work, and returned 6 months later with a construction crew. Within a year, his team had built a large volume stainless steel pipeline which connected the village to the lake. At the grand opening celebration, Bill announced that his water was cleaner than Ed's water. Bill knew that the villagers had complained about the water's lack of cleanliness. Bill also announced that he could supply the village with water 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Ed could only deliver water on weekdays because he didn't want to work on weekends. Then Bill also announced that he would charge 75% less than Ed did for this higher quality, more reliable water. The villagers cheered and immediately ran for the faucet at the end of Bill's pipeline. In order to compete, Ed immediately lowered his rates by 75%, bought 2 more buckets, added covers to his buckets, and began hauling 4 buckets each trip. In order to provide better service, he hired his 2 sons to give him a hand on the night shift and on weekends. When his boys went off to college, he said to them, "Hurry back someday, this business will belong to you." For some reason, his 2 sons never returned. Eventually, Ed had employees and union problems. The union demanded higher wages and better benefits and wanted its members to only haul 1 bucket at a time. Meanwhile, Bill realized that if this village needed water, then other villages must need water too. He rewrote his business plan and went off to sell his high-speed, high-volume, low-cost, clean water delivery system to villages throughout the world. He only makes about a penny per bucket of water delivered, but he delivers billions of buckets of water every day. Whether he works or not, billions of people consume billions of buckets of water, and all that money pours into his bank account. Bill developed a pipeline to deliver money to himself, as well as water to the villages. Bill lived happily ever after. Ed worked hard for the rest of his life, and he had financial problems forever after. The end. That story has guided me in making just about every major decision I've made so far. And when it was originally told to me, I felt like my eyes had opened for the first time. Now I'm always asking myself, am I building a pipeline or hauling buckets? Am I working hard or am I working smart? See, all my life I was told work smarter, not harder. But more often than not, the people who would say that to me were just doing the opposite. They knew deep down that working hard wasn't all it was cracked up to be, and that if you can figure out a way to work smart instead, that it was the better deal. But they broke their back every single day. One of the best examples of this is my stepdad. I can't tell you the amount of times I've heard him say that phrase, work smarter, not harder, only to continue waking up at 4:30 a.m. every single morning to break his back doing manual labor for an ungrateful phone company that could care less whether or not he had enough to pay for his life or not. Even though he says work smarter, not harder, he lives work harder, not smarter. Now his hard work ethic is admirable and he never quits, but ultimately he's working hard to make somebody else very rich while he gets the scraps. The reality is he is an extremely skilled man with an exceptionally hard work ethic who refuses to complain. But all his life he's been taught and shown to work harder than anyone, and it's very hard to change your habits. In the jewelry industry, I see the same thing happen. I've talked to hundreds of jewelers over the years, and there's almost a stereotype to the person I talk to. They are incredibly hardworking people, feel that they need to wear every single hat. They normally have very disorganized desks with sticky notes all over them. They're so bad that they're almost embarrassed to show anyone. They're incredibly good and skilled at what they do. They originally started the business with the intention of having more money and free time for themselves, but instead of building a business, all they did was build a job that sucked away more and more hours of their lives. If one of these businesses does engagement rings, they make good money, but when the order comes in, they're the one doing everything from order to having an appointment to ordering the pieces to setting the stones and delivering the product. Now contrast that to one of the businesses I've worked with who not only understands what work smarter, not harder means, but decided to live it. The owner of this store has employed more than 30 custom designers, each one uniquely gifted in what they do. This means that when a person wants an engagement ring, they book an online appointment with his store. Then after deciding on a design with one of the designers online, it goes through each step with a different person. One engagement ring could go through the hands of 8 people before it reaches a customer. But because they've created a system for getting beautiful rings created in a timely manner, they get thousands of rings done per year and have 2 locations in incredibly wealthy parts of the city. The owner isn't wearing all the hats, but has found others who can do that job better. By doing this, he's able to leverage the high cost of engagement rings, advertise all over the world, and continually increase the audience that he's reaching as well as his profits. And he's able to do all this while not doing all the grunt work himself. Or take on another business on the East Coast who doesn't just manufacture bracelets, but also contracts out their line to multiple stores all over the country who need something that draws in foot traffic. She supplies not only her bracelets, but also the marketing material for them. Now, rather than being stuck just getting sales from those who buy from her online store or come into her storefront, she has her products being sold all over the country, and her ability to scale has increased to the point that the owner can basically live on the beach, hire other employees to do the work, and just be the face of the business on social media. Most jewelers work really hard, but they don't own a system, they own a job. And their only option if they want to make more money is to work more hours, which they don't want to do. However, some jewelers have broken free from their jobs. These people own a machine, and that machine works really hard so that they don't have to. Instead of pouring time into gathering water, they've poured their time into building a machine that can gather infinitely more water than they ever could have. Another benefit of having a well-oiled machine is that the quality of person running the system can be lower and lower. And here's what I mean. When you get into your car in the morning and you turn it on and you're driving down the highway, are you thinking about the compression ratio of your pistons? Or when you turn on the car, are you in control of the separate gears within the differential? Every time you go over the bump, are you displacing a certain amount of hydraulic fluid in relation to the tensions of your coil springs? No, you're not. You're listening to a podcast about how pizza was invented in China and not Italy. Here's the truth. The better the system works, the less qualified the driver has to be. Because cars are so wonderfully engineered, and their main goal is getting you comfortably down the road, all you need to do is let muscle memory take over and just make a few small changes here and there, and the system will do 99.9% of the work for you. How does this translate to your business? The better your business, and the better your business system is built, the less qualified your employees have to be. Why do you think some of the biggest, most successful companies in the world have some of the lowest capable employees? Hint, it has to do with their business system. The better the system works, the less qualified the employees have to be in order to make it run successfully. So how does this help you? Talk to any jewelry business owner and they'll tell you that finding the right employees is one of the biggest headaches they've ever faced. Oftentimes, this is because they need to give these employees a huge deal of responsibility and control, and they need to make sure that they won't screw it up. This in turn makes the employee, not the system, the determining factor in the success of the business. However, look at every major corporation and you'll see that they do just the opposite. They focus on building a system that works so they can hire less qualified people with a greater chance of their success. For your business, this means that the better your system runs, the more work your system does for you, the less you have to pay for high-quality employees, and the easier hiring is. Focus on building a system that works, and you can hire anyone you want. Later, we're going to talk about all the different parts of a business system in the entrepreneur's operating system, but suffice it to say that this is one of the reasons that having a system is better than having a job, and why having a system will allow you to pump more water than you could possibly carry on your own. When I lived in Berlin, I was on a walk one day around my neighborhood, and I saw a sign outside of an old apartment building about 2 minutes away from my apartment. Now, at this point, I was fluent in German, so I stopped and read the sign, which itself wasn't very flashy or showy. And as I stood there reading it, my mouth grew wider and wider as I understood just what I was looking at. Just a 2-minute walk from where I lived in Berlin, it stated, "In this apartment building lived one of the greatest minds to have ever lived. In the top floor, 3 windows from the right, is where Albert Einstein grew up from the year XXXX to XXXX." There I was, just casually passing by the apartment where Albert Einstein lived, a guy from a normal neighborhood just like me. If you read Einstein, you'll notice that he observed the need to build systems and not jobs when he talked about what he called the 8th wonder of the world. Einstein said, "Compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it, earns it. He who doesn't, pays it." Compound interest in basic terms is a system or a feedback loop that allows a very small cause to have an ever-increasing effect over time. In the case of the water systems we talked about earlier, there was a feedback loop present. A feedback loop is simply a cycle that goes around and around and around. So with the water, if someone buys water from the system, that money goes to the owner, and the owner has money to build more pipelines for other villages. Because he now has more pipelines, he's now making much more money, which he can use to invest in more pipelines. If you look at huge, huge, huge wealth, you're looking at compound interest. Think about Amazon, for example. Amazon only makes about 99 cents per sale on that site, but multiply that by millions and millions of sales every single day, and you'll soon begin to realize just how quickly someone can get wealthy with that. Jeff Bezos and his team have created a system for compound interest. Anyone can sell their products on Amazon, and for every sale Amazon makes money. The more money Amazon makes, the more money it invests into its system to make itself even better than before. Because it's better than it was before, it attracts more sellers, and because there are more sellers, Amazon makes more money. In the case of the engagement ring business I was talking about earlier, the owner began by selling a few engagement rings. Then, because he had the money, he was able to hire more designers and do more paid advertising. Because he hired more designers and did more paid advertising, he was able to serve more customers. Those customers paid him more money to be able to hire even more designers and do even more advertising, and even open another location. The cycle continues to spin and spin around and around, getting more and more momentum as it moves. Compound interest works like a snowball that rolls downhill, picking up more and more snow, and as it gets bigger and has more surface area, because of this, the snowball can now pick up even more snow than before, and so on and so forth. Now, when I talk to a jeweler, I can tell whether or not they've been thoughtful about trying to build their business around the principles of compound interest or not. If they can articulate the feedback loop that's causing exponential growth to happen, then they're on the right track. If they can't, then their growth plan is most often hope, which isn't really a plan. So are you allowing compound interest to be a part of your business? If so, how? If not, then what or who is getting in the way? Do you want to work smarter or work harder? If you want to integrate compound interest into your business, we use something called magnitude marketing. Now, there's going to be an entire video later on magnitude marketing up ahead, but I want to touch on some really simple ideas to help you to think in the right direction. Magnitude marketing is when you leverage either profit or scale. Profit is the amount of money that you charge for a product or service, and scale is the amount of people that you can sell it to. So imagine you have one jewelry store in a suburban town. That store makes about $400,000 in revenue annually. Right now, as is, there's no magnitude built in, no exponential growth mechanism. Most owners, if they want to make more money, will work harder. This might increase sales a bit, but not by much, and it sacrifices the amount of time the owner has, which is not infinite. Each person only has 24 hours in a day. So what do? Well, one option would be, instead of having one store that makes $400K annually, having 30 stores in 30 suburban areas. You created a brand, which you then franchised out to other owners, who you then taught to run the store just as well as the flagship store. And now, instead of just one store bringing in money, you now have 30 franchisees who are all working hard, and a portion of everything they make goes to you as the chief franchisor. In this example, you're leveraging scale because you're able to reach a much broader market. Now, it's true, if you're the owner of a company that successfully sells franchises, then you're well on your way to wealth quickly. However, opening up multiple locations is not the only way to increase scale. If managing all those physical locations seems like too much hard work for you, how could you still reach all those people without having to open up 30 stores? How can you leverage scale without having to open 30 stores? And that is exactly what I'm going to teach you to do in this course. Today, because of the internet, you're literally able to market your product or service to anyone in the entire world. The boundaries that once existed in terms of location and scale are virtually erased with the advent of online advertising. Today, you can take a jewelry store that has only reached its town and the surrounding area with the potential to sell to about 100,000 individuals, and you can implement a powerful digital marketing strategy, and now that same store is reaching the entire world with the potential to sell to billions of people, from 100,000 to a billion. That scale is exponential. In fact, there are entire businesses, jewelry businesses, that exist solely online today, and I've helped to manage several of them, and because they understand this principle, they're growing exponentially. So that's scale, but what about profit? How can we use profit to increase compound interest? So let's say you create a line of bracelets. That line of bracelets is already proven to sell very well, and you have a great business coming off of it. However, you want to leverage profit to create magnitude and compound interest. So let's say you sell a bracelet for $60, and your profit on that bracelet, after everything is considered, is $30. Not bad. Now, when we talk about leveraging profit, most people would think in order to make a huge impact, we'd want to double or triple that price. So instead of selling one bracelet for $60, you sell one for $120, and then you would not make a $30 profit, but a $90 profit. That way you get more for what you sell. Now that can work, but normally the same person who bought a bracelet for $60 isn't the same person who's going to buy a bracelet for $120. You'll be excluding your other audience. So let's say that we leverage scale instead, and instead of selling 1,000 bracelets a year with a $300,000 profit, we increase the scale to be able to sell 10,000 bracelets per year. Now the profit isn't 30K, but 300K. Now leave scale alone. Now let's sell to the same demographic, because we know it works, but increase the price just slightly. So let's sell each bracelet not for $60, but with a $30 profit, but for $64.99. Now the profit we get on each bracelet is $34.99, just $4.99 more than before on each bracelet. On its own, that's not much, but when we leverage that in scale and multiply that by the 10,000 sales that we have annually that we're getting, we're now making an extra $49,900. Grand total, instead of making $300,000 a year in profit, we're making $350,000. Now we have an extra 50 grand to use to reinvest in the company, make better bracelets, reach a larger audience, hire another employee, anything. Year over year, that will continue to grow and allow for compound interest to build and create momentum. When it comes to magnitude marketing, we have to experiment, fail, learn, reiterate, and improve. But with scale and profit in your control, you literally have the ability to decide how much money you'll make. No matter what your business model is or what you sell, having control of profit and scale allows you to grow and reinvest and grow more to create more compound interest. Over time, it snowballs, and you realize that, like some of the companies that I work with, now that you're making so much that you're able to spend $5,000 a day on advertising and still come out with even more and more profit. But we'll get to that later. No one starts there. To put all this in perspective, each person has only 24 hours a day. Because of that, we can only work up to 24 hours, and we still need sleep. But by building a machine that makes money for us, whether we're personally working or not, we have the ability to tap into compound interest. We don't want to build a job, we want to build a system. And the better the system works, the less work we have to do, and the easier it is to find employees who are competent to do the job. By approaching our business like this, we can make better decisions about how to scale and how to increase profit to leverage compound interest. Once we find something that works, we can increase the magnitude of our marketing and let momentum take over. Over time, this momentum will become larger than we anticipated, and we will have more work than we know what to do with. But because we built a system that works without us, it can continue to grow without needing more time from us to run it. Are you building a pipeline or hauling buckets? Are you thinking like Einstein? This course will help you to leverage compound interest for your business.